Hello and welcome to Onesies, a podcast of one season wonders and blunders. My name's Andrew.
My name is Emily.
And thank you for joining us for our last episode of season 5, 6?
Six.
The Chessgame season, the Terrence Stamp season. We are on the last episode of Chessgame entitled Digging Up the Future, which is a nonsensical title given the content other than it takes place at an archaeology dig.
Just like the last one, there was something about Rome, right? The Roman connection.
The Roman connection makes sense in this one, sort of, but
kind of.
not.
Hadrian's Wall, I guess.
No, there's a thing where he sees. We'll get to it. But there's a reference to it that goes nowhere because it's about stuff that Terrence Stamp knows that they haven't told us, even though people have full-on expository conversations at least 2 times in this episode.
Yeah.
But
ridiculous.
Did you get your 3 things?
What are my 3 things? Hiking and reading. Let's just go walking and reading. He's barely hiking. Cinema Verte. And I'm going to go Pash for Fash.
Okay, so I will do... Let's see. Sorry. For some reason, I have a note that says, Nick walking Hadrian's Wall like an asshole. Poor Nick. Okay.
Because he's walking and reading. That's why he's an asshole.
All right. Oh, we'll do fantasy posters because I feel like there's something coded in there. Let's see here. Red Scare, which was very interesting. And then, that's actually Portuguese. I'm sorry. This is not as easy as when we watch stuff like
Dracula the
series. I do have a note that says Titlers Like You, but I don't. That's just something he says to somebody. So instead of Titlers Like You, though I do like it, I will go with Bright Window, which will bring it back to Dracula the series in a way. Okay. We open with, my first note is flashback boobs. So
I realized something about that bathtub scene that made it unsettling to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
On top of him just like staring at her while she's washing herself, she's staring down at her body parts while she's washing them.
Yes.
It made me a little uncomfortable. The fact that she's very slowly, I'm not even going to do it because that might be construed as sexual harassment because you are technically at work.
American cishet white male, I will tell you, that is how women bathe themselves all the time.
It was really creepy. It was so slow, and she was focusing on her tits and maybe what's between her legs, seemingly.
Because she was promising a little nipple for the gentleman in the audience, for the British gentleman in the audience of the show.
Hey, there might be some lesbians too who would have enjoyed that, and gender nonconforming people.
I feel like those people probably did not watch this show when it was airing in 1983 because it is actually quite homophobic and bigoty, and I just feel like I don't know.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. You can make all the assumptions you want to as a white man.
See how this one's going, folks. Just wait till you hear what Emily's got in store for next time, because this is the show from now on. But going forward, we have to get there first. We have to get there first with going through the recap, which has a weird recap based around Nick, which I thought was adorable, since this was a guy whose name sort of does it matter now? It doesn't.
But we didn't even know what it was. We didn't even know what it was until the last episode.
Raiders of the Lost Ark guy, who's not the Raiders of the Lost Ark guy. But then it's a more full recap, including the shooting, and then everybody's fine. Yeah, everybody's just fine.
Everybody's fine. But is the first thing that we see? The first thing that we see isn't Robin Sachs coming down the stairs with his foot, is it? Okay, it's exposition. So it is them, the 3 people. It is Dan,
and Polly talking about exactly what just happened, while Terrence Stamp sits
at a piano
and does nothing but answer like 2 questions, to which my note is, did Terrence Stamp not want to do the scene?
1-word answers. He just looks annoyed and pissed off the whole time.
But then it ends with Polly realizing that the boy from last time has been murdered.
Yeah, Neil.
And then that's when we cut to the restaurant and the piano, where I believe there's the second black person of the show playing the piano.
I didn't write that down, but that was in my head.
Yeah, it was your head. And it's much better. This black person is not a presumed terrorist or someone who is enjoying watching an old white guy get beat up, which is why Terrence Stamp had to vote for Brexit. Because of this, because he forgot that he's like John Wayne thinking he served in World War II. It's Terrence Stamp was like, there was the time I got mugged when I worked for MI5 in 1983. I'm going to vote for Brexit. Anyway, so then Faith is alone and having dinner. And I guess there's a boobie shot because I wrote boobs in my notes.
Oh, I didn't notice the boobs. The first time ever.
Do you want to pause so you can go watch it?
No, that's okay.
Okay, we actually did pause and Emily did go watch it. So now we're ready to talk. Okay, so Hugh comes down. Hugh, aka Hugh, does not need to be in these episodes. Like, I'm glad he's around. He's utterly pointless in these episodes. Yeah. It's incredible.
And he doesn't even have the chemistry with Faith. I mean, they do kind of have the chemistry still, but it's goes nowhere and it's nothing cute and it doesn't add anything.
No, this was one of my potential 3 things was he's got a message for her from the master. And she even looks confused when he says that. He's like, no, I mean, David, what do you mean?
Yeah.
He's had a little incident. And then it ends with her, they get a bottle. They're going to get a bottle, so it's going to be okay.
But and she's going to tell Hugh everything she learned about the women's school going forward. And they're going to share a bottle of champagne and maybe 69 or something. And
Hugh's leg might hurt when they do that. They're going to have to figure that out. I'm sorry, I know you think Robin Sachs is cute. I would assume that he is not a gracious lover based upon his age and racial demographic.
Yeah, but he's got that old lady all hot, and an old lady. As an almost old lady, I know that I would not stand for a young man who isn't good in bed.
Only old men are good in bed. Okay. So then we have Nick walking Hadrian's Wall like an asshole with his tour book.
He's not reading a tour book. He's reading the book that he's supposedly have written. You know, he's undercover as Colonel whatever and reading the book. But it just reminds me of every asshole I've ever known in college, every asshole I see on the streets of LA, walking down the street slowly reading a book. It's like, fuck you. Fuck you.
Get caught reading, Emily. Get caught reading. You carry your paperback in your back pocket. You read your book. You gotta read your, what would be a good one to read? What's that fucker? You read your Bukowski when you're walking down the street. Hell yeah. Like a man.
Hemingway, Bukowski, what's that guy that wrote that big thick book that all the men want to read?
Joyce?
No, Wallace.
Oh, fuckhead. Yeah. I'm sorry. I don't actually know. I just assume he's Infinite Jest guy.
Yeah. Infinite Jest.
Yeah. If you want to get depressed, just sit around and think about how having such a exclusionary literary system has deprived literature of so many voices.
Have I told you how much I hated Confederacy of Dunces? This is a whole separate oh my god, it's the worst thing ever. Don't ever read it. It's terrible.
I'm not going to.
Okay.
Isn't he dead? I'm not going to read it.
Yeah, he's dead.
It's going to be very hard to convince me to read a 21st century white man.
It was one of those things that was like, for some reason, it was just on my phone. I don't know if it was like that U2 album, just like everybody got it downloaded onto their phone. at some point. And so I was like, oh, I'll just listen to this. And I hate it every second. Anyway.
Okay, so now this is last episode. We got very confused about this whole castle thing.
Yeah.
We thought the castle bullshit was over. It's not. It's half this episode is going to be Nick under suspicion at this castle.
Yeah.
It is dumb, but also it's fine. Like, that's kind of my thing about the show is like, this is good prestige television. Like,
Yeah.
this is perfectly fine prestige television. Like, this is an HBO show, basically. Or it's Slow Horses, but with more boobs. Okay, so they pull Nick off of Hadrian's Wall to trade him out with a doppelganger so he can meet with David, who is in, as I put in my notes, a fucking mobile command station. David, the academic who talked to the Israelis too much while on the Middle East desk writing boring reports, is in a mobile command center.
With like a dozen soldiers with him.
Dozen soldiers. We aren't even to the point where he has had a lunch set up for them in a deserted shack. That's the next part of his plan. So David is basically like M plus James Bond. He's like the whole package, really, which is what Faith calls him. So Nick has a tail, Sergei Kormel of the KGB or something like that. Now, would you like to remember that name? Is that name going to be important to you at all, Emily? Is it going to come back after this scene? No.
I don't think so. I don't think so is the answer.
Now, so the decoy goes out. They have to give the decoy Nick's hat, because Nick's goofy ass hat, because every British man wore a goofy ass hat in the 80s.
It's his hiking hat.
As always, I do not understand.
Keeps him warm and protects him from the sun. I do not understand
male attracted people. I find it very weird. I mean, no, that's not true. That's not true. I can understand like why somebody would think, I don't know, but no, we're not going down this thing. Though, however, I did have this note. I realized this morning, and you did not. I don't think you liked my tweet. I recasted the Thin Man for the 21st century.
I did see that tweet. I did see that tweet.
Courtney B. Vance and Angela Bassett. I watched What's Love Got to Do with It last night, and the fact that she never got to do a romantic comedy where she didn't end up abused is a fucking travesty. Like, she would have been great in a light comedy. And he's fucking awesome. So they would be wonderful for old man Nick and Nora.
Yeah.
Or 60s Nick and Nora. It'd be great. Anyway. Okay. So they can't match the hat. They give him the hat. David's like, let's have a spot of lunch. And he's like, what the hell have you been doing when I've been walking Hadrian's Wall for 2 days? So presumably he made Nick camp. Is this like when you walk the way or when you walk the Pacific Coast Trail? Yeah. Like, Nick had to camp outside with nothing but that big book as his pillow. That's very mad. David says he's been risking his neck at Oxford, but no one's been hurt. And then, to which I noted, thank goodness for exposition. So then they have a dinner in the shack where David complains about the Chablis. Or no, he doesn't complain. He's very impressed with the Chablis they're able to arrange for his lunch in a deserted shack on the moors, because he's a fucking spy master. Okay, so then Faith has a walking scene with her friend, not Anne. Her friend from the last episode who made fun of her for getting with an old man.
Yeah.
This is a very weird scene because they're walking, having a conversation about like how Faith's got to do something this episode. And then the lady's like, well, I don't know what you're going to do this episode. And then somebody rides by on a bike and she's like, oh, that's the person you need to talk to on that bike. Go chase her.
Yeah.
And Faith's like, I do? And she's like, yes, but this has nothing to do with me. So I'm going to leave the episode now. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And then Faith runs after. Faith has a chase scene.
So this is
heels?
She might be, but small ones because it's the 80s. This is my cinema verite scene where she's being filmed by somebody on foot running, chasing this this young lady through the streets of Oxford. This is also part of my Pash for Fash. I fell in love with her clothes this episode. I don't know what it was. And the angel, or whatever the woman's name was. I love their 80s clothes. I love it. I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to go back for more 80s stuff. Let's do it. Let's do 80s, all of it.
Well, we've done Automan. What can possibly...
What could beat Automan? That's right.
We need a show where Desi Arnaz Jr. plays a fashion designer. Can you imagine how bad that would have been? Okay. That's actually not a spoiler for the reveal, folks. We're not doing an 80s show. Okay, so yes, but then we also discover Hugh is following her, even though he promised her he wouldn't follow her. There is no resolution to that. It has something to do in the plot later on, but she's never like, so you're just never going to listen to me? And he's like, oh, of course I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
You ladies need our protection. Okay. Chases this girl on a bike down. Now, this was actually really cute, the Oxford shooting, because somebody I follow on Twitter in the UK spent their weekend in Oxford, like on holiday.
Oh,
they were
nice.
posting pictures. I was like, they shot it on location. That's so cool. So they argue about, they're like, where's Abigail West? I don't know. Who are you? Blah, 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 blah. I've got to go. Then the woman who she's questioning goes one way, stops, turns around, goes another way, and we get this lingering shot on the Department of Metaphysics or something like that, because that's going to be important. It will not. There was no reason for that. Also, the whole plot last time about the Russians trying to take out the best and brightest at Oxford, not a plot, but it will figure into the Red Scare mention, but only as a mention.
Yeah.
Okay. Are we back at lunch? Yes, we're back at lunch for David. David and Nick are talking about how the problem with that David thinks Neil was a KGB man who came to the UK and loved capitalism so much he defected in his soul and became a good teacher of British imperialism. And there you go. And his masters never asked him to do anything until the end.
Yeah.
And then there's just like a bunch of jargon because I'm like, okay. And this is where David's like, well, actually, that's Alec the marksman who did a job for me in the Middle East once. He's the one who must have shot at us. A job for him in the Middle East. David had no operational responsibilities, is what we were led to believe in the first episode. We were led to believe he was a stalled career at MI5, somebody who watched shitty gangster movies and whined about having to come into work. But no. So then they say, why haven't the Russians stopped fucking around with us? Usually they stop fucking around once they know we're onto them.
Yeah.
When they're running espionage operations on foreign soil, they stop once they're... It's very weird. Like, if this were an episode of, I don't know, FBI or some American show, they would have just raided the Russians. Now we cut to Faith going to the woman she just questions house.
Yes.
This is a very Dracula the series type move of, we just had a scene where we were like, we're not going to do this scene. And then they're like, well, actually, we're going to do it just in a second. But like immediate. So apparently Faith waited until the chick got out of class, then went to her house.
Yeah. Followed her home.
She got her name, I think, from the register. It's very confusing. Hugh is still following her. This is the fantasy posters scene. So they're talking about what's happened to Abigail. The problem with this scene is it's going to turn out to be a red herring, and they want to try to keep it going, but there's no substance to it.
Yeah.
So it's just the girl going, well, I can't tell. Oh, she's been through so much.
She seems to be having some kind of breakdown also. Like, she seems to be very disturbed, kind of about this woman looking for this other student.
Why are you looking for her?
About the woman coming to talk to her about, like, there seems to be some paranoia, something going on in this woman's head, and it's like, it's very odd, and I disagree with you about it being completely useless because it sets the stage for what will happen to Faith closer to the end, but it's odd. It's very odd, and I didn't understand it.
It has no content other than for the narrative purpose of getting it's connecting, it's getting Faith to a place, but there's no. But we will find out there's nothing to this storyline, and so they didn't even come up with like the bullshit to keep people busy.
Yeah,
and the production design on this girl's room is fucking weird. The walls. The only decoration in the place are like Boris Vallejo sexy barbarian chicks. And I'm like, what is this? Like, what are they trying to code here?
Yeah.
Like, the best and brightest go off to Oxford and fall in with the fantasy crowd and lose their minds. Like, mazes and monsters. Oh, it is Dungeons and Dragons time. Okay. So then it's the end of part 1 after Faith like tries guilt tripping her. You have to tell me if you're really her friend. And it's like, why? Why would I have to tell you? What if a professor did something inappropriate and the girl's traumatized?
Yeah.
Then we would have gotten to watch a whole thing about Faith gaslighting and enabling that behavior. But okay. We got saved from that. Instead, we cut to a dragon. And then a bunch of young British men playing croquet. And then I was like, holy shit, wait, this is the castle that we thought was not part of the story anymore.
Yeah.
No, it's now the episode. Nick is pretending to be Nick Butler, writer of boring military history books. And he meets I think he's already met this guy. Did we meet Upton last episode?
I don't remember.
Because I mean, this is why we got so confused last episode.
Yeah.
It was like David invited Nick to this house on his own behalf. It's very weird, but he didn't invite the person who was there. Like, he didn't invite the homeowner. Very weird.
Yeah. But, and the whole series is very weird with, like I had mentioned last episode, saying names of people but not showing their faces, and then showing their faces but not naming them. So it's like you're just supposed to assume in a previous scene when they say so and so and then insert job here, and then you see somebody doing that job, you're just supposed to assume that person is the person that was named. It's very weird. I don't like it. It's
one of those things where espionage thrillers are intentionally confusing. And because, you got to keep thinking through the whole thing. And it's like, because you don't want to write a better story, maybe I got to keep thinking, why don't you just like have this actually be a real thing? Like, just do it straight. Like, don't try to manipulate it. But then the guy who lives there wants to talk to Nick about the book. Nick gets nervous, but then Polly comes in to interrupt them, and they're going to go watch the boys play croquet, including Dan, the fellow who was shot at. We forgot to mention, David told Nick to team up with Dan and Polly to investigate while he's at the castle. I don't think there's anything that ever comes of that.
Yeah.
Now, we then go to outside to watch people play croquet. I need to check something if you would like to talk about horses and such.
I don't know anything about horses.
What are you talking about? It's when Terrence Stamp rides up on a horse.
Oh, yeah.
And is like, hello.
Yeah, he so Terrence Stamp is seen in the distance by Polly, and he's, at first I thought he was turning away. He was just sort of snooping, but then he ends up coming up the driveway, because you ride your horse on the driveway, to the front of the house, and Polly goes to meet him, and Polly greets him, and I love her dress that she's wearing in this. Again, the fashion in this is fucking great. And they have a little exchange about, what are you doing here? And he was in the area for something else. I forget exactly what. And he just shows up. And in that scene, I was like shocked. I was like, wait a minute. I thought you had this guy go undercover to get into the thing. We had this discussion in the last episode. I thought he went undercover to get an invite to go to the castle, but you already know the guy and you just show up and say that you're in the area. It was confusing to me, but it kind of comes back at the end where you say, like, everything is a red herring. Like, absolutely everything is unnecessary except to make the story interesting.
Yes. So then David's like, can I borrow your guest, Colonel Butler, so I can talk to him about his book?
Yeah.
And the Upton guy's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Okay, sure. And he's like, we're going to go for a walk. So they walk over to some stairs where David like he flops gently down, like he splays out on these stairs. Like Terrence Stamp was like, I'm only doing it if I can do it sexy. And they're like, what? And he's like, you know what I mean. I very much picture Terrence Stamp acting like Toast, just going to say. Okay. And this is where the Red Scare thing comes up, because they talk about, oh, what's going on with the students? Well, they're going to protest. And David's like, well, protesting's okay, but you know where that leads? Being red enough to glow in the dark. So we shouldn't allow any protests. And then David's like, okay, Nick, just give me a call. We're done with the scene. Let me know when something comes up. Okay. Nothing that actually matters has happened yet, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
We're saving all of that for the last. Is it all in part 3? We'll have to take a look.
I think so. I think it is.
So now we've got Faith and Anne biking to a house where the blind guy from last episode is, and he's leaving. This is a night scene. Night. Night. I was thinking how weird it was they were biking at night in the road. I'm like, I guess there really isn't traffic. 15-minute cities and all that business. Okay. Yeah. Faith goes into the basement. Now then we cut to Nick snooping around at the house where he overhears the students planning their red protest. And he is interrupted by the owner, Upton, who's like, let's go have a drink. I have a few embers of my fire going in the study. This is only important because he and Nick then go sit in the dark together, which Polly will comment on after they have their scene.
Yeah.
But their scene is, you're not the real Mr. Butler or Colonel Butler.
Yeah.
But then we cut to Polly in the house searching, because it's a very Dracula the series layout. Somebody's walking around the house. She's snooping. Did I say Polly? I meant Faith. She walks past a window. I was like, that is a bright ass window, but it's nighttime out. And then you can see through the bottom of the window. No, it's just daytime.
Yeah.
It's just a daytime shot.
No day for night here.
Nope. Okay. I do not remember this from last episode, so maybe it came up. We then cut back to Nick and Upton talking, where we find out that Upton is one of the 12 apostles who I guess are like commie professors or something. And there's only 6 left, but this guy's had a change of heart, so he's not a commie professor anymore. Or he was like a KGB asset. Maybe they talked about it last episode. It did not permeate
I don't remember it. I don't remember it.
So he's like, one of the last communiques I got from the KGB was that they want to something about, okay, I didn't take good enough notes, but because it doesn't matter, because it's about how the KGB realized in the 60s youth like to revolt, but they were not able to target that at anything for the KGB's use.
Yeah.
So the West has learned from that to combat that problem of the youth being dissatisfied by the world their elders have created, is to stamp out youth. Cool.
It's actually capitalism. It's actually capitalism.
These are the British. If they can't take credit for inventing the capitalism, they're not going to talk about it. They haven't gotten over that since the end of World War II.
You just keep people complacent and hand them a shiny new iPhone.
Okay. So then Dan and Polly come in, and we've established that Nick is not there for Upton. He doesn't care. He thinks there's something going on with these students or something.
Yeah.
So he's very upfront about it. Okay. So then he's like, ugh. Somebody said something about elderly proctors to deal with the students. But then they are interrupted by Polly, who's like, why the hell are you two sitting around in the dark? You have lights.
Yeah.
So she turns on the lights. She's like, hey, Nick, do you want to go shooting with us tomorrow? We're going to go shoot some lamb. And Nick's like, I'm not a good shot because I'm a fucking super spy who's a bad shot. Then Upton goes, actually, in the prefix to your book, it says you're a very good shot. He's like, oh, well, then I guess I'm going shooting.
Yeah.
Should be funnier than it is. But the scene is just like, these guys just suck. Like, we know how all these guys voted.
So what happens is Nick is outed as a spy of some kind and set up to be out in the field with a gun the next day.
Right.
With the other two, with the kids.
Will this matter? I don't actually think it does it? I think it actually, David...
It establishes that the kids are going to be out there, and that matters. And Nick is there and meets... Well, whatever. We'll get to that.
Okay. Now, oh God, the entire plot does happen in part 3, because we're almost there.
Yeah.
All right. Faith finds a cage in the hallway with clothes and Russian literature at the bottom.
Oh, yeah. What was the name? It was like O.T. Tarkovsky. O.T. Tarkovsky. That comes back around, and I have something to say about it.
Okay. And how it's his manual on how to fish for red herring. Okay. So she goes to see she finds Abigail West, who she's been looking for 2 episodes. And she's like, Abigail, I'm here to rescue. Come with me if you want to live. Abigail's like, I'm fucking fine, dude. Leave me alone.
She's not really like, I'm fucking fine, dude. She's laying on a floor in a white gown in an all-white room and kind of looks up startled. And she looks like she's drugged or she's brainwashed, or this whole thing with this weird cult thing feels like a cult thing, and it never gets resolved. Anyway,
not at all.
She says that she's fine, but it does not appear that she's fine.
But she's not going with Faith.
She's not going with Faith.
This is not what's happening with the plot. Faith is not rescuing her. Instead, Faith is getting captured by the creepy cult kids.
Yeah.
We then cut to Nick listening to the bickering students again, so we are very suspicious of them, including Art Malik. He's the loudest mouthed one, and if you don't know, Art Malik is not a white man.
I've seen him in things before. Is there anything you can think of that I might? I definitely saw him on Goodness Gracious Me, but I can't think of what else.
Most infamously, he was the Islamic terrorist in True Lies.
Okay, I've not seen True Lies, but his face is very familiar.
Yeah. And he's got a lot of hair. He has hair for Art Malik, so this is like actually pretty handsome Art Malik.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But then Nick calls David up and he's like, David, we need to meet. We're not the cat, we're the mouse.
Yeah.
Because Upton's in on the plot, because somebody's onto him, because the kids are onto him. None of that. No. That is not this story. Here's the story. It's time to start. Part 3. Oh, they're not shooting lamb. They're hare shooting.
Yeah, hares.
Okay. They think it's the protest. They're going to try to assassinate somebody at the protest. But who? Something. But they think the Russian sniper is in the hills.
Yes.
Now, they're at the archaeological dig site that has been in this show, despite being mentioned in 2 episodes. It has been in the show less than the locations in Dracula the series. They could not get rights to shoot here for shit. They were like, Terrence Stamp's really actually going to be super problematic. We don't want you to shoot here.
What foresight. Wow.
Hey, they're digging for the future. So David happens upon this. He's meeting Nick before the Nick meets the kids so they can have their exposition and set up.
Yeah.
David sees some names in the archaeology van that look vaguely Roman. And I think this is where he's like, it's the Roman connection.
Maybe.
Because they're Portuguese names.
Yeah.
Or something. And the professor, who I assume we met for 2 minutes last episode, but is just a doofus and is not memorable, and is not the professor from the beginning of the last episode that had the whole montage sequence. There's just some doofus archaeology professor who invited a Brazilian ambassador or something, government official, to visit the site, which David, the spy master, did not know. He did not
He's
know.
a Middle East man. He's a Middle East man.
Okay. This is where we get some amazing Britishness. The guy hasn't told anybody, but he thinks that Portugal is really the original Lusitania, and that makes them the first British allies, don't you know? And I'm just like, it is. How did they not? The British people never French Revolution, all of you. Like, just okay. Then we cut to Faith being interrogated by the blind guy. She's questioned by Angel, though.
Yeah.
Who walks around
in a beautiful outfit. I loved that outfit.
Continue talking, Emily. Continue.
Well, but when I talk, then I can't hear you clapping.
Slapping my leg. They're doing like brain whatever. I'm like, is this actually what they tried for brainwashing? Was this effective? I've got so many concerns.
I don't know if it is, but it is aggravating.
It is aggravating.
Yeah.
And after the last 9 years, we've learned lots of people fall for lots of really simple shit. So it is possible.
Doesn't take much.
Slapping your knee can. But I mean, Faith doesn't get brainwashed. She's just like, that's really fucking annoying. Can you please stop that?
It's like, you're driving me crazy. And in my mind, that's what happened to that other girl. That Faith was speaking to before. Yeah. It's like, this is the outcome, is that this girl who is not in the cult, because she's not living in the weird house, has been driven mad by these brainwashing people. And Angel, she's the only one not wearing all white, besides Faith, obviously, but she's dressed impeccably. She looks great, except a little maybe haggard. Her hair's a little nuts.
Okay, here we go. Cut back to the archaeology site. Dan and Polly show up with guns, hunting rifles.
Yes.
I'm like, if you shoot a rabbit with one of those fucking guns, doesn't it just destroy all of that rabbit?
Well, we'll see the impact that one of those guns can have on something. And they come running down the hill with their shotguns. They're running down the hill. I put gun run on my thing, and I was like, who does that? Who?
Most gun owners, actually, Emily. What are you talking about? What did you? Oh, I'm sorry. You think gun safeties? Oh, yes, Emily. Responsible gun owners who go to the class and watch a video about how Democrats are communists. Yes, Emily. Sure. Like they're better in the UK. Whatever. Okay. But they're running downhill to meet David.
Yes.
Who's just like, oh, hi, y'all. Butler left on urgent business.
So David had sent him away to redirect the Portuguese guy. Yeah.
Yeah. The Portuguese guy's car. Run down to the road and flag him down.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, and then David's like, oh, by the way, do you kids know about the Portuguese guy coming or the Brazilian guy coming? And Dan's like, we've sort of heard something or a little about it. Not much. And Polly's like, yes, of course, we know his whole itinerary.
We've known it for years.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, I wonder which one of them's suspicious now.
Yeah.
Then David's like, well, there's a fucking sniper in the hills. He probably killed Neil. can you go scout the hills and capture him for me, or just tell me when you find him?
Yeah.
Civilian college
College
students.
students.
You're Oxford men.
Well,
Asterisk.
he will use everybody at his disposal to help him in his work, whether or not they're qualified.
That is true. We will see that
everyone exists just to potentially be.
So Terrence Stamp can do as little as possible because he did say he only did this for the money, but this is the point where he's like, yeah, that money ran out about episode 5. I think we're about done now. Thank you. Okay. So then Dan's going to go to the left. Okay, cut back to Faith in captivity. She's like, my name is Isabel Fennick. And they're like, well, that's weird because your checkbook says FC Audley. To which I'm like, she got them checks fast.
That's what I had the same
married thought. 3 weeks.
I had the exact same thought.
To which they're like, do you steal checkbooks? And she doesn't just go, well, yes, I fucking do. Like, yeah, I do. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Instead, she's like, you brainwash the kids here. Okay. Then there's the milkman is there. And then as soon as Faith admits the truth, we will all drink milk for breakfast. Cut to David talking to the working man. What are these guys? Are these the manual laborers at the archaeology site who wait on the students?
I don't know. They just look like not farm hands, but like they look like farmers.
Yeah. David says, I need you guys to stop these kids from getting through. We need to block their free right of protest. 5 pounds each for a punch up. No injuries. And all the guys are like, all right, chaps, that'll be fine. Except the leader of the group has to then talk to the other guys in the group like they can't hear David because they're not qualified in the caste system to hear David. It's wild that Britain managed to find another country that had such a fucked up social system to fuck up further, but also one that just fits so well with them of just like, you're just a fucking asshole. It's ingrained in society that you get to be a fucking asshole to people and treat them like shit and make them feel bad about themselves for no reason other than you want to be an asshole. The history of white people. Okay, so moving on. Faith is asking more questions. Then Hugh is actually the milkman, and he has forced his way in. And my note is very good looking Hugh, too. We have not seen Hugh this day. He's real good.
Casual. It's a very lightweight polo shirt with kind of like 80s browns, stripes. I don't know if it's stripes, some kind of pattern.
Last episode,
it looks very good.
The idea that we were going to be looking forward to some adultery for these two. It would even fit because Hugh only dates married women, like James Bond post, Casino Royale, emotionally sensitive James Bond. No, nothing. Sorry, folks, that ain't shit. Hugh's going to get Hugh and Nick's send off in this series. They should be very mad. They should have deadpanned. Okay. So Faith's like, well, he's a fucking Russian, man. And the guy's like, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is the OT Tarkovsky?
He's like, no,
he points to a picture on the wall and he's like, oh, that's our
guru.
Our spiritual leader.
Yeah.
It's fucking Rasputin.
It's Rasputin. It is 100% Rasputin.
Okay.
Is that OG Tarkovsky's real name? Because I don't remember that. But yeah, no. They just had a picture of Rasputin. They're like, we're the Rasputin cult. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
And then
it's just, okay.
And they're like, if Abby wants to leave, she can fucking leave. We're not keeping her here physically against her will. And then Faith's like, it's despicable what you're doing to these kids. And he's like, let's get the fuck out of here. And then who says, may love be with you?
Oh, that's Was that the girl they were there to save, or was
Angel
that just...
says that?
No, no.
The girl they're there to save.
Yeah.
They pass her in the hall.
In the hallway.
And she says, "May love be with you."
But
I do not feel like that was the message of Rasputin. I do not feel like that was what Rasputin taught folks. That has got to be the most fascinating thing. Just like the actual, like, we will never know what the deal is with Rasputin, but that is some fascinating shit. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
I love cults.
You do love cults, and we'll be talking about that in a bit. You love cults and problematic men, and we will be talking about that in a bit. And I love making fun of little white kids. So we've got a surprise for you. But we got to get through this?
Yes.
Because we still don't know what the show's about. Here's what the show's about. We cut back to the bridge where the students are approaching. It is the dumbest protest in the world. They're in the middle of nowhere. They're going to protest their own archaeological site. They're doing it to protest political prisoners in Brazil.
Yeah.
Guess what, guys? It didn't work then. And David is on the bridge. They got Terrence Stamp on the bridge, probably on the same day he shot his fucking lunch scene. And he's got the guys with him. He's got his working class men there ready for a punch up. And he's like, "That's far enough, chaps. We're not disputing your rights to a protest, but there's a sniper in them there hills, and we can't let you through." And
they all start laughing at him.
Got killed. And he's like, "No, this is why Neil got killed." And
yeah.
Yeah.
And then the only one who cares is Art Malik.
Yep.
Art Malik is suddenly putting pieces together in his head, and he's like, "Oh, fuck."
Is that going to matter, Emily? Is that going to matter?
Only in that once the protesters start charging, he's holding them back. But no, other than that, no.
So then we see a helicopter. That's how the ambassador is getting to the site, a helicopter, which seems even less likely that you can fly a helicopter to an archaeological site. Do you remember how angry Alan Grant got at John Hammond at the beginning of Jurassic Park 1 when he took the helicopter to land on their site? They had to cover it all up. It was the first scene of the movie. It was where we established that Alan Grant does not like children. That obnoxious little kid. He did not like the obnoxious little kid. Shocker. Little did he know the obnoxious little kid would grow up to buy Twitter. Okay, so then they rush across the bridge. Art Malik's getting through. The professor is an idiot. Like the archaeology professor is literally looking around, stupefied, unable to understand anything that is going on.
Yeah.
In a show that has had some lazy characterization, this guy wins. It's almost like they just brought a guy out and we were like, "Here, just go over there." Then there's a shot. And what do we see? Dan coming down the hill with another gentleman with a rifle. David's like, "Well done, Dan." And then I figured you'd find him because something's going on with Dan. And then Dan's like, "Well, I know you told me to come get you, but I just didn't have a choice. I just saw him there with his rifle and I had to grab him." And then David's like, "Hi, Alec. How you doing?" I don't know if this guy gets any lines. I don't know. I don't think he does. He did not get his British Actors Guild card for this part. No, he did not get his SAG card that day. And then David's like, "Well, I'm just going to let you both go." And Dan's like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Well, give me that gun." And Dan's like, "I'm not giving you that gun." What? Well, no, why are we? And he's like, "Game's up, comrade. You might seem whiter than white, but you're really a Russian spy."
Yeah.
And Alec was your expendable. And this was all to get Dan cemented in. It's not even an assassination plot. It's a fake assassination plot that Dan can foil and get cemented in British academia so he can make kids red and not let the West stamp out youth. So this is where we get the explanation that The fire at the school was not to destroy Neil's records, but to destroy Dan's records.
Yes.
The shooting at the bridge was a ruse to throw suspicion off of him. This is when David calls him a tittler and says, "You need to go home as fast as you can, boy. Go back to Russia.
There's a boat waiting. Go jump on it, you son of a gun." Yeah.
Don't need any more Reds here. We need good old-fashioned white British men in British academia.
And Art Malik.
So we can train Boris Johnson. And I mean, Art Malik can be the problematic sellout, or not really. I mean, no, because you're not a sellout. That's actually a problematic thing to say. Don't cut it. I feel bad about saying it, and I want to own up that it is not okay to call Rishi, whatever that fucking the guy. Cut that part. It is not. Hold on. What was I saying? Cut this one. Wait, no. Yes, the guy who runs the UK PM piece of shit right now is not a sellout. It was problematic to call him a sellout. I apologize. He's not a sellout. He's a piece of shit on his own terms. He gets to be a complete garbage piece of shit. Okay. Titlers like you. Okay, but then Dan's not going to have this shit. He's just going to fucking shoot David. Raises the gun. What's going on? What are you doing? You want to talk about the drop? The David. So Terrence Stamp, super spy, brilliant strategist's plan for surviving getting shot with a shotgun is, I'm just going to drop before the bullets hit me.
I'm going to dodge. I'm going to literally try to dodge these bullets.
But by dropping, and we already know that he can't drop because at the end of episode 3, Nick had to pull him to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's slowly learning how to be a spy, even though he's already a spy master.
Spy master, running missions.
And you hear gunshot, you see brains splatter against a rock. And of course,
US.
You and I know that he's not dead, that David is not dead. And then you cut to Polly holding her rifle, and she has just shot her boyfriend in the head after presumably overhearing everything.
Yes, they have not consummated yet. She is Neil's ex-girlfriend, romantic interest, the dead guys, and through her bonding now, we saw some of this at the croquet game.
Yeah.
They have the meaningful thing, but yes, they're going to do the I'm going to hook up with my dead boyfriend's best friend thing. That's their arc. Except he turns out to be a fucking commie, so she had to drop him, as you do. Okay, when you're an Oxford man who's a woman. Okay.
And she looks horrified. The look on her face is like heartbreaking. The best acting she's ever done. I've never seen anything else. I don't even know who it is.
Because the rest of her part was Terrence stamping like, you're kind of my love interest too, this were a James Bond movie.
Yeah.
And every one of her scenes looked like he just got done telling her that. Okay. So she has a hug with her dad. David explains how they got him into Oxford. Who gives a shit? Dan wanted to be a hero, parentheses, for the commies, whereas Smith learned to think for himself and embrace capitalism like a real man.
We've been talking about I just looked, sorry to interrupt. We've been talking about James Bond all this time. Polly was in License to Kill.
Okay.
Miss Money. She was Miss Moneypenny. I don't know if that means anything to you.
She's the Timothy Dalton Moneypenny. She only got the one thing because they had the regular Moneypenny in the previous one, I think. I can't quite remember. Okay. Yeah, she was only the one Moneypenny.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the new ones since Casino Royale, but I hear Moneypenny's a badass now, which seems fine. I don't.
I've never seen a James Bond. Never seen a single one.
You're fine. Realistically, you're fine. Yeah. You want to watch? Yeah. Okay. So.
No, I know I'm fine. I don't need you to tell me I'm fine.
But Emily could go through and figure out what it went from him having sex with at least 3 different women to 4, because that's a whole period. And then they restrict it to 2, but then they up it again to 3. So I believe Pierce Brosnan always did 3. And then I don't know what Daniel Craig did, but that's the history of the James Bond series, is how many chicks can't handle it, whatever. Okay, so then David meets up with Faith, and they reunite.
Faith just comes in and he's like, "Oh, you're finally here." And she's like, "What the fuck? I traveled 200 miles."
They're at a location at this point. It doesn't matter where they are. But does Hugh bring her? But
Hugh brings her.
There.
Yeah.
And they're just like, all right, well, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, it's time to bang. We haven't banged since the bathtub. So they leave. And they're like bickering spies on their way out, even though we have not gotten to. Nobody's acknowledged she had no point in this except to pad runtime, except to get us to this runtime, to get 2 episodes out of this story. In the novel, presumably she has some character development. Maybe she and Hugh get naughty. Nothing happens here.
Nothing.
They go get in the car, but first we have Hugh and Nick watching them walk out like it's an end of an Automan, where they're just like, "Oh, gee whiz, it's so fun working for super spy David Audley."
Yeah, we're gonna pause while we're cheersing our coffee cups.
Very weird, very bad exit for Robin Sachs for this series.
Yeah,
like this show's been dissing Nick since Go, but Robin Sachs. This show treated him like Terrence Stamp must have been like, "No, man, ladies, why you want the ladies to think Robin Sachs is here? Like, no, they got Terrence Stamp. They don't need no Robin Sachs." They get into the car. David touches her face and she bites his finger because they fuck
in the car
in front of.
That's the lost episode. That's a lost episode.
Just in front of everybody. They just walk out and the car's rocking and that's the real end. Nick and Hugh are just like, Jesus fucking Christ. Terrence Stamp.
Oh boy. And that's the end.
That's it. It's prestige television. It's competent and fine.
It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's a lot of holes you can poke into it if you're watching it critically.
I imagine if
they could have done more.
They could have done more. They could have done because we never actually got the payoff for David and Faith. Yeah. She went and was a spy on herself. The whole payoff for this shit is, as I alluded to earlier, is the Nick and Nora formula, where you have the couple doing shit together, separating people out and having them do shit. That's easy to do.
Yeah.
Putting them together and having them do shit, that's my stolen Die Hard 3, where we actually got Bonnie Bedelia helping Bruce Willis fight the boat terrorists, right? Like, that's the shit that you want the team up.
Yeah.
Chessgame never got together. It's been promising it since episode 3 hardcore, and it
never delivered
these last 2 episodes.
And it could be the stories that they picked. As you noted, this third story, these last 2 episodes, is completely separate. Except the only thing they bring over is Hugh and his dodgy foot, right?
Yeah.
But they could have picked a completely different novel where they do team up and Robin Sachs is still in there and hobbling around on his damaged leg, but they just don't do it, and it is disappointing. And it's disappointing that there weren't more. I mean, with Doctor Who, with James Bond, with all this stuff, they just recast. I know Terrence Stamp hated being on television. I know he only did it for the money. Just recast him. It's not
a hard part.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a hard part. You're just a dicky British guy who's charming. Like, they've got a gazillion of those.
Yeah.
You just got to get it. Like, yes, he's better looking than most, but still, you fucking doing it. Oliver Reed was still alive with this, right? I can imagine.
Was he?
When did Richard Burton die? He should have done the movies. Just a boozy Burton one of these. But yes, this is like a prototype except for the spy element.
Yeah.
This is kind of a prototype for the British mystery series of the 20th century, right?
Yeah.
Or the 21st century, where they'll do 3 long episodes as a season, and then they'll come back and do it. This is like a very nice start to it. And it's very interesting to contextualize it with the Sherlock Holmes series as both being Granada. So.
Yeah. I wish they would redo it and cast somebody who's not a fucking dick, but who can play a dick. You can cast Idris Elba, I guess, but he's kind of got cop.
This is also Luther. This is also what Luther is next time.
Yeah.
So he's an Oxford man who never has had any experiences. And did you watch Luther?
I watched like the first 2 series, but I never finished it. I loved it, but my access to it was cut off. Now I have access to it again, so I should watch it.
Yes,
I love Indira Varma as his wife, and I was devastated.
Yes, that was, and then
and Paul McGann.
Yeah. Oh, good God. You know what? I have already had to go through this. I have had to go through this. For some reason, when we were watching it, it's just like, Paul, and I'm like, Paul McGann, oh, yeah. And I was like, there was a time I was watching some movie and you walk through and we're like, oh, yeah. And it was this guy. And it's like, oh, yeah. And I'm like,
I love Paul McGann.
He looks like a fucking leprechaun. Yeah, you know what? He's the British Krumholtz, apparently, if you know what I'm saying. How?
Yeah. Have you seen With Noel and I?
No, I have not seen.
See With Noel and I. Okay. See that.
Okay.
I mean, it's not going to make you attracted to him magically, but it's really good. He's really good. Richard E. Grant's everybody's really good. It's really good.
Should we watch Doctor Who, the movie?
No, you should not watch Doctor Who.
You should watch it. It's
continuity. I mean, if you're a completist, yes, but it's not necessary.
Paul McGann would be great as Audley.
Yeah, he's a little old now, but yeah,
it would be a little bit more appropriate too. He could be old and not
45. He could be old and not 45 like Terrence Stamp.
Oh, was Terrence Stamp 45 in this?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how old the character's supposed to be, but Terrence Stamp was like 45.
Okay.
So that's the end of Chess Game.
Glad we didn't watch Dracula the series again. It's good. I mean, it ranks pretty high on our overalls, but that's also because we've watched a lot of shitty television. But
speaking of shitty television, oh my God, what a great segue. For our big announcement, season 7, or whatever season we're going on, I'm pretty sure it's 7, of our podcast, we are going to be watching the ABC television series from 1993, jumping ahead to the 90s, Joe's Life, starring Peter Onorati, Mary Page Keller.
Is that how you pronounce that?
Fuck you. And George DiCenzo. Amongst others. We will talk about the other characters.
Are we saving it as a surprise?
Surprise. Yeah, we're not gonna mention anybody's affiliation or criminal status at this moment, but we will wait until next time. So I hope you are all looking forward to joining us next week when we watch episode 1 of Joe's Life, and it only has 10 episodes. So ye fucking ha.
You did not tell me it was another ABC show. What is with us?
I didn't know until I looked it up
shows
just now, because I was trying to figure out who our extra special criminal.
I think we're watching Dark Shadows, the series, man. I think we're watching the revival. I think you're gonna have to now.
Okay. All
right. I think. Oh God. All right.
Okay. Well, we will see you next time when we talk about Joe's Life. Episode 1. Andrew, see you in Television Land.
See you in Television Land, Emily.